economic collapse and the little book of bull moves and bear markets. This event is 45 minutes.
But then it might be, I guess maybe it would be too obvious if we did that. But so this is going to end just like lenders eventually stopped loaning money to people who couldn't pay it back. Just like real estate prices didn't go on forever, this dynamic between between China or other countries for that matter too, and America will not go on forever. We're not going to continue to consume what other people produce, and we're not going to continue to borrow what other people save, especially since the borrowed money is going to consumption. When you borrow money to consume, you can't pay it back. How are you going to pay it back? You don't have an asset. Borrowing is for businesses. It's for entrepreneurs. It's to accumulate capital. Why? Number one, society benefits from that. But number two, when you borrow money and you get a capital asset, you can pay back the loan because the capital asset generates an income. The income pays back the debt. The income pays the interest. When you borrow money to spend it, what do you have? You got nothing. How are you going to pay it back? You just have to reduce your consumption in the future to pay for your indulgence in the present. We have to move away from that. But the world knows they're not going to, we can't pay it back. And so when this dynamic comes to an end, what's going to happen, right? When foreigners don't buy our bonds, bond prices collapse. When they no longer buy the dollar collapses. And then what's going to happen, right? The Federal Reserve is going to be in a real pickle. And when I talk about hyperinflation, the possibility of hyperinflation, it's not based on current monetary policy. Current monetary policy is just going to give us high inflation. It's probably not going to give us Zimbabwe-style inflation. In order to get that type of inflation, the Federal Reserve is going to have to continue to make the same mistakes, and the government is going to have to continue to make the same mistakes that they're making now. If they do, then that's what we're going to have. And the key timing is going to be when the foreign demand stops. Is the Federal Reserve going to buy the bonds? Or are they going to do what Ben Bernanke is bluffing that he's going to do, in my opinion, and that is mop up all that excess liquidity, right? Put that genie back in her bottle. And how would they do that? Well, what the Federal Reserve is going to have to do is refuse to buy those bonds, which means bond prices will collapse because there will be no buyers until prices collapse sufficiently to produce an interest rate high enough to attract real buyers. Who knows how high that rate might be? In 1980, rates got to 20%. Imagine if something like that happened today, even if they got to 10%. How would the United States government afford to pay the interest on the national debt? Back in 1980, the debt was financed with 30-year bonds. Today, the debt is financed with T-bills. The United States made the same mistake as subprime mortgage borrowers. We refinanced our fixed-rate national debt for an arm. And if interest rates go up, it doesn't just affect the money we borrow now, it affects all the money we've been borrowing for years as that debt has to be rolled over. And if people think they have problems now paying their debts, imagine with 10% interest rates. Do you think any financial institution would be solvent with 10% interest rates? I mean, Goldman Sachs makes a big deal that they paid back the TARP money. You think they'd be solvent if they had to deal with a real interest rate, if they didn't get all this free money from their buddies at the Federal Reserve? If the Federal Reserve had to defend the dollar with real interest rates, could Goldman Sachs, could JP Morgan, could anybody stay in business with those loan portfolios with all that leverage? Absolutely not. What would happen to home prices if mortgages were double digit? Right? I mean, so is the government going to administer all of that tough medicine? Well, they're going to have to avoid massive inflation or hyperinflation. They're going to have to do it. And the problem is, if they won't administer that medicine today, why should we believe they'll do it in the future when it's going to taste a whole lot worse